You can start recording in a couple minutes. This is going to take a little bit over an hour, guys. Also, I don't want to hear the echoing. No, we're going to hear it. Just a couple minutes. Before we start, can I get a little sample? How many of us here are in first year? Second year? Third year? And final year? Not many for new grad? Okay. Did you start the recording, by the way? I did. Oh, right. You probably want to do that. Presenter Zoom, yeah. Oh. Yeah, that's probably. Lighting good? All right, I'll begin. All right, anyways, welcome to Landing an Internship or Co-op. I'm the Career Advisor for the Computer Science Society. This presentation was given to me when I was a first year, many years ago. It's inspired me since, and it's the motivation for what you're seeing today. So, your first question is, when can I ask questions? I don't really care, just raise your hand. Now you might be wondering, all right, who am I? So, not just who am I, I've asked students, including friends of friends, including many students, they've all, and most of them have worked at significant.
I was actually just came out of a meeting, I was with the Career Advisor, not long before this, and Farrah Francis, the lady, she mentioned Rocket Innovation Studio.
Right.
As a possible place, I could should that possibly or something?
Yeah. Remember to raise your hand, but you're right. So, I myself, I just completed my internship over at Oracle. I'm right now working an internship at Reese. Probably don't know the name, but all the students here have worked for these companies, also attended University of Windsor, and have reviewed the slides and confirmed this information, right? We have NVIDIA sitting right here, Ryan. Anyways, so now for the big stuff, all right? So, as many things in life, landing an internship or co-op is simple, not easy. But before we ask how, we must ask what. So what is an internship or co-op? So it's just going to be a short-term work experience made by companies, and you're going to be, at least in software development and IT, you're going to be working side by side with working professionals. That's as far as I know for most internships. And these are usually paid, right? So the most question. Either in the United States, I know those exist, but more on that later. So internships and co-ops, yeah, question? That will be covered later. Yeah, internships and co-ops in CS specifically are typically 40 hours a week for 4 months. Now this is all employer dependent, so this stuff can be switched around. And they usually have options for extensions. In fact, many have options for full-time, which is what makes it lucrative. So why do an internship or co-op? I'm sure if you're sitting here, you don't really need this kind of help, but why not just motivate you a little? So you get to graduate with relevant experience in your field, and it puts you ahead of most CS graduates. Believe it or not, a lot of CS graduates graduate with very little experience in the field, and they do end up having to work other jobs or things they wouldn't want to do outside of graduation while they wait to get a job in their field. It also helps you discover fields of CS you like or dislike. I know personally, I initially was going through IT, realized I didn't really like it. Uh, went into software engineering. It was better. There's also other things like embedded, and even in software development, there's like many different fields within that: AI, data analytics, things like that. Uh, Third reason is money. Everyone likes money. And it likely leads into a full-time offer like I previously mentioned. And honestly, these days this is back, but back in COVID when I was doing internships, this wasn't really a possibility. You're able to travel and live on your own, and this is pretty interesting for people in university since it's not very likely that it can happen just because of university unless it comes out of your own pocket. But you are paid to live and work somewhere else for 4 months. So it's nice. And you get to network with actual networking professionals instead of just your unemployed friend in CS. So I added a graphic here, and if it's too hard to read, I'll tell you just quickly what it summarizes here. The 2020 median pay for software engineers or software developers, QAs, and testers in the United States was 110,000 per year. That's approximately 53 per hour. Now, granted, this is in the United States where their salaries are much higher, but nothing stops you from getting a US job from a Canadian education. In fact, it's relatively easy compared to more other countries. Typical entry-level education is a bachelor's degree. I know many people with masters, and I have interviewed people with masters in our podcast, which I'll talk about later, who did get master's degrees. And I don't think anyone really said that it was really that worth it, but we'll see in the coming years because the education tends to trend upwards. There's a lot of jobs, and the job outlook is much faster than average, especially for software development. All right. So here's some common misconceptions. A lot of people think of an internship and they immediately have some thoughts that get into their head. The first thing is internships are unpaid. So this is extremely false in Canada. However, this can be true in the parts of the United States, but you'll be able to smoke out a job like this pretty fast if you read the posting. So in fact, in Ontario, unpaid internships are largely illegal. I know companies have ways around them, but there's not many that do that. Question. So it's usually a US corp hiring abroad. I think that's the most common way. I'm pretty sure there's other ways, but right. Yeah. They also do that, but if you're in the co-op program, you can't, I don't think they let that fly. So it's kind of an interesting topic, but I'll say 98% of the jobs you'll see on whatever job search you're looking for will be paid. Next is the statement, all you do in an internship is get people coffee. False. In software, you are typically doing the work of a full-time employee or an entry-level grad. So you're going to be assigned, typically in software development, you're going to be assigned someone's, or if not your own software project, and you're expected to do either that one or a number of them over your work term. You will be doing real work, working with real professionals under the guidance of a senior, typically. You cannot apply to internships if you're in the co-op program. Now, this used to be true, I know, a couple years back, but now co-op has recognized this as a guided job search. And I forgot to ask this earlier. Can I get a raise of hands if you guys are in the co-op program right now? Like that you applied and got accepted into the co-op program. Okay, so that doesn't activate until second year, but you're still in it, right? So co-op recognizes this as the guided job search. So you can apply for jobs outside of the co-op portal. You're going to hear many things about me saying internships being better than co-ops, and it's gonna come into your head that internships sound great. Why would I pay for co-op if I can find an internship? Let's drop co-op. Now, it's not I'm not saying that isn't a very false notion. I'm just saying that internships are much harder to get, and you will understand what I mean in a little bit. Keep co-op for your first position. Your first position is generally really hard to get. Okay, so on to the actual internship versus co-op program. There was a question about this earlier. So an internship, you apply on your own through job listings and referrals, no co-op program necessary. So most of the jobs you'll see on LinkedIn will just have postings for 4-month work terms, typically summer, fall, winter. You're on your own for preparation and applying, but you could almost say the same for the co-op side, but they do help you a bit. And internships tend to pay more than co-op. Typically, especially if you get an American internship, they typically pay much more. And this is true for full-time as well. As I said earlier, the median salary for a software developer in Canada is much lower than in the US, not even accounting for currency. I should probably check if there's anything in Teams. Can you? Is there anything in Teams? Okay, good. Co-op. So you probably know if you're in the co-op program. If not, you probably want to try and shift yourself into it if you aren't already. I'm pretty sure there's a deadline for that. Kyle would know those kind of things. Kyle's on our Discord server, by the way, in case you have any questions. So what you do is you apply through the co-op program. They'll give you a portal in your second year, second semester, and they have connections to companies that are exclusive to co-op students. So this is typically small local companies. I know a couple of these, like Hiram Walker, and I don't know, it's another small company, co-op. Reese also, I mean, Reese kind of does whatever though. So I can only really think of Hiram Walker. I know there's fewer. Yeah, Centerline, things like that. Small companies local to the Windsor region, these companies typically won't have postings on LinkedIn or anything. You'll only be able to see them from co-op. However, these account for like what 2% of the total job market. So don't be discouraged by this. Co-op provides workshops for resumes. Now, whatever quality those workshops you assess are, it's worth thinking redoing your resume after doing your co-op resume is what I'll say. And I think we'll go over that a little bit later. So the co-op program also is essentially another course with assignment and tasks. If you were in second year, first semester, last semester, then you would know that it basically becomes a course at the start. And you have co-op fees, which everyone hates, right? The $455 a semester until you graduate, right? So how do I land my first internship? Again, I'll say it's very simple, not easy. There's 4 steps. You prepare, you apply, you interview, and you have results, right? Very simple. All right, so step 1, prepare. Landing your first internship is usually extremely difficult. But here's how you can prepare, right? So you want to build a visually appealing resume. You want to build side projects to make up for lack of experience. Your first year or second year, you likely do not have relevant experience. Relevant experience meaning anything in like tech. So if you worked at like Burger King or something, that's not going to be relevant experience, even though you were employed. So what you can do in make up for it is enthusiasm, or at least faked enthusiasm, by making these projects and going to hackathons. Especially going to hackathons and then making the project, that's really interesting to companies. And not just that, hackathons are huge in other reasons, and we'll get through those reasons later. Practice coding problems. A lot of people like to skip this. It only applies to like top tech companies and top paying salaries, so it gets a lot of hype. But you don't necessarily need to do this if you think you're already a decent programmer, but you have to make sure if the company you're interviewing with does these kind of questions. It says here to read Cracking the Coding Interview, but I personally have never read it, and I've done good enough on my technical interviews, as long as you practice above LeetCode and HackerRank. And you must be prepared to fail multiple times, even if you don't have connection, especially if you have no connections. You will fail a ton. In fact, failure is expected. You need to come into this with the mindset that I will come here and I will try and get a 1% success rate, if that. Let's go on to hackathons. So hackathons, and it links here to where you can find hackathon. So let's click here. So it gets you to mlh.io, and we'll get to the 2023 season. What do you mean? Yes, yeah. If you want to sign up, you have to sign up using DevPost, right? So, okay, never mind. My bad. Anyways, these are all your upcoming events. So let's say, what weekend would I be free? Let's say the 24th to the 25th. So I would scroll down. Hack Around the World, digital online, and it's an online hackathon. Build a project in here, and oh, well, this one, Whisker Hacks, right? North American time zone, digital only, right? I recommend in-person hackathons, but some of these are pretty far away. I know there's one coming, and I'm gonna go to it. Where is it? It should be. The thing is Dearborn. Yeah, Hack Dearborn. I'll be going to this. It's relatively close. If you want to go, you should go. Should be. Let's see. Yeah, it is. So I'm gonna go here. I don't need to build any projects, but not just for the projects. Well, I guess I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me explain to you what a hackathon is, right? So you compete to build projects, usually 24 to 48 hours, and there's different like segments, right? So you have different competitions, and you're going to try and get like a top prize or whatever, but that doesn't really matter. Most people just go to build a fun project and then come back, and you don't really need to participate in the competitions. You can just submit whatever you want. It's completely free and usually includes food if in person. Larger hackathons will cover travel expenses for exceptional competitors. We have an exceptional competitor here. Ryan will be going to Make Harvard, right? Sucks. Well, anyways, he got accepted into Make Harvard and would have been going to Harvard for that. Any experience level is welcome. In fact, they actually prefer people who are newer. I've been declined for many hackathons that people who are newer got. So if you're newer, consider that an advantage. Tons of prizes and swag, and it fills space on your resume, which is really the biggest thing here. Not only that, but you do get to network with companies, but I'm assuming you're not really confident enough to do that yet. So under preparation, we want to go under resume tips, right? So I guess I didn't do the gifts, honestly. Someone else did it. So here's some big resume tips, okay? And understand that if you follow enough guidelines, it does, like a lot of people, what happens, and I get tagged a lot in the careers chat with this, is review my resume and they make some micro adjustments, and it's as though like after a certain point, if you follow all of these things, making micro adjustments and changing the styles won't change the outcome of what job you're getting or not, right? It comes down to other factors after that. But I've seen a lot of terrible resumes in my day, so here's the important stuff. Keep it to one page, no matter what no matter how much experience you have, and I'll show you someone later who somehow keeps it to one page. One page. Find a good template online. I like LaTeX, but some people, yes.
I have my resume with me on my laptop here. Are you gonna be like
After.
looking over resumes?
Yes, after.
Okay.
Google Docs is fine and HTML is fine. I would always submit my resume as a PDF, even if parsing's terrible. It's usually either you could fix it or you just fix it manually when you apply. But the thing with PDF is that when someone tries to open it, it will always open in a clean way. If it's like a doc, you don't know who has what software to open it, so you don't want to block someone from viewing your resume, right? So short bullet points, no large blocks of text. So if you want to say 4 things, you spread it into 4 bullet points, not 4 sentences in a paragraph. Okay? Mention accomplishments, try to quantify them using real numbers. Action verbs, huge. Designed X, developed Y, ran these tests. Don't list your average, and I know what you might be thinking. Well, what if I have 90 plus or 95 plus or 80 plus? It's a general tip not to. I'm not saying this will make or break your application. It's just that things like listing your average, things like putting your face in your resume, things like that only serve to as a disservice to you, because they can only be construed as, well, this guy looks like this guy has this average, I would like higher, or something like that. And a lot of and you might be thinking, well, how would they do that if I have a 90 plus, right? If you list if you have a resume and you have 92% on your resume, and they see another resume with 94%, you've instantly just given yourself a disadvantage, whereas it was ambiguous the other way. So it only helps to give you a disservice, honestly. But I mean, there are numbers where it stops being relevant. Like I'd say, like if you like have 100% average, like there's no reason not to put it on at that point, right? So okay, so I'd also add on, a lot of co-op's advice is straight up outdated. A lot of people have echoed the same sentiment, and a lot of the people who make resumes with co-op, and I recommend this to you, is you make a separate resume to apply with and just submit your co-op resume as an assignment, or for example. Now, let me show you some good resumes. So I would like to start off with Eric, who was the one who gave me this presentation very long ago. And this is the example I mean when keep it to one page regardless of how much experience you have. Now, this person has graduated a while ago. Look at how many jobs he has, look at the companies on it, and look at how short he keeps it. None of us in this room have any of this experience. However, some of us will try and go over a page. This serves as a reminder that you want to keep it to one page no matter what. And you might look at this resume and be like, well, his experience is so big that it fills up so much space. How am I supposed to fill up this kind of space? And like I said before, you want to replace all the white space with projects, things you've done in the real world, typically not a school assignment. All right. And I'll show you, let's see, I like Harsh's. So Harsh doesn't have as much experience. He's had 3 jobs on this resume. Now I know 3 jobs sounds like a lot to you, but if you fill up your white space with your education, your skills, and he's had many more projects than this, if he filled it up with his projects, he would have been fine. And this is exactly what I want to show you. He's using action verbs, created a Chrome extension, and he's quantifying it. 40 plus downloads. Technologies used. All bullet points, no paragraphs. This is a good form, and this is question.
No. So an important thing to remember is that the recruiter only looks at your resume very quickly.
Yes.
If the average is 30 seconds per resume, and so they're looking for what is the key points.
So bullet points are useful, keeping it short and concise, bolding highlightable things. So a recruiter, when they look over your resume, they see all these points and they're like, I get it. This person does this, 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 and this.
And so I can back up what he's saying. Ryan here himself has worked at many companies himself, most recently at NVIDIA. He has many more projects than this. He can fill up his experience with projects. It's just that experience is typically valued more than a project, right? But not but that's kind of irrelevant to you since you likely don't have much experience, right? So, continuing on with the resume tips, like he said, recruiters typically look at your resume for 10 to 25 seconds. And this is how I'd segment my resume in this order if I'm looking for an internship. Now you can switch some of these around and try and mess around with it. It won't like change your chances by much. Just generally, this is what recruiters want to see, right? If you're a student, they want to see your education, and then they want to see your experiences. If you have none, just skip on. Go to skills, programming languages, tools, frameworks. They want to see what you're comfortable with. Then your projects. Your projects is where you back up your previous section. Say I list Python. Where have I used Python? Make sure to back up what you say on your resume. It'll make your resume look a lot stronger, right? So extracurriculars, if applicable, and then awards or miscellaneous. And extracurriculars can be hackathons, like attended X hackathon, attended Y. And then awards, probably Dean's Honor is worth putting on. I never have, but I'm sure it can help. You can always tag your career advisor on Discord, and trust me, many have done that. If you didn't know, if you go to css.uwindsor.ca/discord, you will join our Discord community. There's a many of you are probably in, right? And it's really just a free community that a lot of people have had success with the tips we've had, and will point you towards the right direction, right? Number 2, all this time and we've only made it to number 2, right? When to apply. So this is actually overlooked a lot. There are cycles for applying. So like I told you, there's 3 semesters where you could get an internship, right? Fall, winter, summer. By far the most egregious and long application season is the summer internship, because that's the most popular one. So it's important to notice that big companies will always start much earlier than smaller companies. So even in summer, so if you want to apply for summer 2024 for Amazon, I think they even open in July for this summer. June. So companies like Amazon will open up, and it's weird to say this after all the layoffs, but typically what'll happen is it'll start around August and go until April for later companies. But it's only typically for big companies that they start earlier. You want to be ready when this term is up. It doesn't mean start practicing for interviews here. You should be practiced by this period, because what companies do is they hire on a rolling basis. You will get an interview possibly within 2 weeks of your application. Expect that. But I mean, you're also expecting no answer for like months. So fall and winter are much less egregious. Fall hiring cycle is May to July of the year. And then winter is August to October. You'll notice that summer and winter share months. It's just how it is. But only when you're looking around during this time, most of the postings will be for winter, right? Only big companies hire for summer. And this is an important quote. It's a numbers game. I applied to roughly 250 internships on my first go around before I landed a job. And that it wasn't even a good job to start with. It was just a job the university created because of COVID. And it's it's not looking really good for you guys out there, especially on the internship level. So you really do have to start. If you want it really bad, you have to show it. You will have to apply. Don't expect results after 40 applications. It would also help you if you track them, but that's not necessary. Expect rejection. Expect being ghosted. Number 2, how to apply. Most tech companies and banks offer internships year round. We're in a weird spot right now with the market, but there are definitely still offers or internships going around right now. So you would want to browse for job listings on various job boards. So I'll show you a couple. LinkedIn is the biggest one. I think you can genuinely just, nice. Well, let me just log in real quick.
On the YouTube right now. It's on YouTube.
Okay, so I've logged in.
What's your password?
Oh, come on, man.
That's right.
This sucks. Anyways,
Zain Raza.
so these are my previous searches. You'll see in what you're gonna want to do is once you have a LinkedIn, and you should create a LinkedIn, I would go ahead, click to jobs. You type in, so disregard what I was looking at. You don't have to. You have to look like I am looking. So if I'm looking for a co-op or internship, I'll type in software because some people call it engineer, some call it developer, and then I would typically type North America if you're like a U.S. citizen. If not, Canada's good enough. But I mean, the big tech companies don't really care. So once I've searched that, you'll start seeing weird options here. So you got to click experience level, internship. Oh ho ho, my messages. Did not see that. Okay, so let's. So now you're gonna start seeing stuff you want to see, right? So Motorola somehow still alive in Quebec. And I'd look at this job, I'd be like, okay, I want to work for Motorola. Surprise, surprise, Motorola's denied me many times. So take a look. You look at this 0+ years. This is very typical of a co-op position. And what you want to look for, especially in co-op, I'll take your question in a second. Like, I would look for co-op or co-op. It doesn't say anywhere here that you must be enrolled in your co-op program. See, it says you don't need to be enrolled in co-op, and that's the important thing when you're looking at these postings. You want to make sure that if you're not in co-op, you need to make sure that the posting says doesn't have to be enrolled, right? So you click apply, and then you got to do this, and it's typically Workday, Bamboo HR, or like a million different job postings. You're gonna have to do this, but yeah. Anyways, this is how I would search on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is the most, I'd say, widely used. Yeah, I mean, many people I know have only gotten jobs through LinkedIn. Question.
Not a question. It's important to remember that job postings are a wish list of what the person has.
Yes.
It's not a guarantee. If it says required skills, there's a chance that's not actually required.
Yes.
Jobs will pay you to learn the skills on the job.
Yes, it's an internship, and that's an important point. A new one that I like is Simplify. I'm not going to log in, but you'll get the gist. You'll see. I'm sure you guys all know how to use a computer. So yeah, other people like Indeed. Intern Supply is all right, but there's a lot of broken links. And then AngelList has helped some people too. But honestly, I would focus number 1 on LinkedIn, and then Simplify is getting pretty good too. Work at a start. I should have added that.
Work at a startup and AngelList are genuinely the top.
Yes. Work at a startup's good too. AngelList is important too. You can have this presentation after the. I'll post it in the careers chat after. So once again, I must reiterate, it's a numbers game. How am I doing on time, by the way?
It's real nice.
Oh, I'm good. It's a numbers game. You have to apply to many postings. And I would not suggest just applying to like large companies like Google and Meta, even though you can't right now. So apply to everything. You have no idea where you're going to land.
Amazon recruiters are still hiring even though there's no actual jobs.
Right. Okay. So the next thing is you want to get referrals or talk to people you know or contact recruiters. So this is through LinkedIn or Rocket Reach. So I don't know if it'll let me use it without logging in. Okay, so I'm not logging in. But what happens is you basically type in someone's name on this search bar and you can get their email and you can try and get in that way through networking. It's hard to do and it's out of the scope, but this is generally a good idea, especially if you're spamming out applications and you think you can get. If you have an in at the company, this is extremely important. Get a referral or just have their email, and you must be okay with rejections. This is not an easy mental game. All right, especially when the deadline's coming up and you need a job, you're gonna have some dark thoughts.
In the co-op programs, if you don't get a job interview or a job through co-op in the last month or so, so this is like April, when you got exams coming up, they will hand out your resume for you. But I would not recommend that. I would just say try your best to get your own, just because it allows you to know what you're actually being applied to, so you're not in like an hour away and you're driving and spending $1 million on gas.
Most tech companies, especially big tech, have highly technical processes to assess your coding and problem-solving abilities. Now, this process greatly varies between companies, since a lot of degrees are not worth the same. Companies will have their own interview testing process, and some of these take months. So here's a typical interview process for a mid to big size company. First, you apply. It gets sent to the company. Then they send you an online assessment. It's a timed coding challenge, usually on HackerRank or CodeSignal. Do well on those, you'll get 1 to 2 phone interviews, 45 minutes to an hour each. Generally, mine have been 30 minutes these days, but so expect it to be fairly short. Then 2 to 4 on-site interviews, 45 minutes each, usually all done on the same day. The company will pay for your transportation or hotel if required. They don't. So I know, for example, someone who interviewed at Google, they got flown out to Sunnyvale and got a nice 2-day hotel.
So it seems a lot. So they have like they can't do like online over the phone. They're gonna like fly you out like to wherever it is. If it's not someplace that's not.
Yes, on a whiteboard. Yeah.
Sometimes these interviews require like an in-person touch.
Okay, because I did already apply to a few people that are not in Windsor. So
They'll fly you out. They'll pay for everything.
there's one applied to that in Calgary. So are they gonna fly if they need?
If they want to, they will.
It depends on the company. Like if you apply for big government jobs, it's more likely that they'll fly you out to wherever the job is to do the interviews.
So, yeah. Anyways, let's go on to OAs for the interview process. All right. So if you're applying a decent amount, you will start accumulating OAs, and OAs being, once again, online assessments. These OAs will test your knowledge of data structures and algorithms. That's a second-year course, but don't expect to ride on that. You're going to have to study a lot on your own. Usually test case-based scoring. So for example, I give you a problem. I give you a function to write, and I have 20 or so test cases of input and expected output. And you're going to have to try and pass all those tests. So I would recommend, first off, using Python for these. It's not necessary, but it helps speed up the process significantly. Not only that, I recommend this newer site, neatcode.io. A free list of Blind 75 being like, I mean, you don't even have to do the entire Blind 75 for interview questions as an intern, but do most of these topics on the frontier. I'd stop around graphs. These aren't as popular. They're ranked by popularity, and they'll give you, these are problems that you might see on an interview, right? So the most popular problem I think for interns is two-sum. So take a look at this and just see if you can solve this. Not now, but later. Anyways, this is really helpful. A lot of interview questions are based around this stuff here. We also recommend Code Signal, and Code Signal is also well, I have to log in, but anyways, Code Signal is the most popular company for online assessments, so it's usually better to practice where you're going to do the test. Statement.
There's a lot of really good resources hidden in the careers and internships.
Yes.
In the CSS.
So take it seriously. If you have an OA from a big-ish company, it typically means okay, this isn't necessarily true, but I found that companies that answer OAs or give OAs back are typically willing to pay much higher than companies that don't. That's not necessarily true, by the way, but 80% of cases I would say that's true. If your goal is a quant or top tech company, make sure to solve all questions. So if you are trying to make it big, you chose the wrong school, but if you're trying to make it big, make sure you network, make sure you solve all these questions, make sure you're on top of the ball. This is something you should take priority even above your studying. I would say. If it's the difference between you getting an 80% or 70% in class over getting a job at Microsoft and Centerline, I would take the Microsoft, right? All right, continuing on with the interview. So there are a few types of interviews. So this is the most hyped one, I would say, not the most popular one. Data structures and algorithms, similar to LeetCode. I just showed you a problem on LeetCode. And what would happen is basically you'd get a question like I just showed you, but you'd have to write it on a whiteboard, or most commonly now it's like share screens, but people still will do whiteboarding. So if I ask you a question, you'd have to write out the function on a whiteboard that answers it and then answer questions about it and make sure it's optimized. So LeetCode again is a great platform for solving these or preparing for these. Usually expect an optimized solution, not brute force. You always, if you can't think of an optimized solution, just try and do brute force. And usually your interviewer will lead you towards an optimized solution. If not, they're kind of icing you. But such is life. You want to mention the brute force solution first and then think of ways to optimize later. So make sure you have an answer. I would show you an example, but that would take a lot of time. So communication is key. Explain your thoughts. So if I gave you a question on it, if I gave you an interview question and you immediately turn to the whiteboard to start writing your solution, you've already made a mistake. You want to clear out your thoughts, ask clarifying questions, say what you think you're going to say. And some people even just write pseudocode and say, is this the right idea? And then go on to the actual code. Question.
I'm not a stutter. Do you think that like the fact that I stutter might make them not want to hire me, or would that be an issue at all?
Okay, so they have laws against that, but I mean it's a wild world out there. They can, but I don't think that will be a major contributing factor. I've seen a lot of like speech impediments and like especially accents too. People.
Okay, if they don't hire you because you're an accent,
That's illegal.
They're racist.
Yeah, yeah, I know, but like, do you want to like if they don't want to continue with you because of your stutter? Do you want to be employed there? Is the question. Like, really?
No, but at the same time,
you need a job, right?
They shouldn't be doing that either.
Yeah, they shouldn't be doing that, but I'll say 90% of companies will not. 95% will not easily.
Yeah, companies are scared of getting sued.
Yeah. So next interview is domain specific. This happens from time to time. I'm not sure how popular this is. I've personally never gotten this. So you'll get question about terms, definitions in specific languages. So for example, if you have an interview with a company that primarily uses Java, popular question would be, what is polymorphism? Can you tell me about dependency injection? Things like that. And if you're confused by those terms, You can wait until second year or research this stuff yourself. The most common type is behavioral interviews. Everyone has to do one, whether you're doing a technical interview later or not. So these are going to be actual standard interview questions, typically from a recruiter. Questions are going to be like, tell me about yourself, tell me about a difficult situation. Be generally enthusiastic and interested specifically in these interviews. I would use a STAR method. I don't know if I did not mention the STAR method. So if I ask you, tell me a time where you overcame a difficult situation. STAR stands for situation, task, action, result, right? So I would give you a situation, the task that was actually handed to me, what I did, and what were the results of that. So think of it like that, right? Results. So you'll typically get an offer or rejection at the end, unless you get ghosted. But we're not talking about that right now. Most companies will call with results from your interview. If you receive an offer, you need to celebrate and analyze. Can I live off of this pay? This is an important question to ask, especially if it's in person. Is there housing stipend, moving benefits, visas? These are all for bigger tech companies. Usually you'll never get a housing stipend for a smaller company or moving benefits or any of that, but it can happen. So the important thing is, can I accelerate my process with other companies using this offer? So, and I'm not saying this happens super often to first time people who apply, but if you're in the process with, let's say, Intel and Oracle, you get an offer from Intel and Oracle's kind of like delaying your application, right? You can go to your Oracle recruiter and be like, well, I have an offer from Intel. Can we speed up my process another week or into a week? Because if you have a deadline to accept, then they have to speed up by you. And don't be afraid to be like, well, what if they reject me or whatever? That won't happen. They're just being slow because they're slow. They can speed up very fast if they wanted to. If you do not receive the offer, thank them for the opportunity. Do not forget that since you interviewed with them, you know their names and you interviewed with them. Next cycle or a cycle in the future, you can contact these recruiters again. Don't be upset. Just thank them for the opportunity and wait for 6 months-ish or next cycle, I would say, to apply again. And you want to expect rejection. I wouldn't start making any moving plans until I have my offer, right? But yeah, a lot of people make this mistake of, well, I got rejected, I'm just gonna do whatever now. But you got very far. Think of it as a small win. You have homework. You want to make at least one project. Hackathons are great for learning how to apply your school knowledge and come up with ideas. You probably are scared of making a project. I'm sure some of you already have projects. Just try anything small, anything extracurricular, nothing from school. I mean, you can use your knowledge of C from school or something, right? But try and make something that works by yourself and has like a cool concept. It can be literally anything. I get asked this all the time. What should I make? And Co-op likes to say like MERN stack application or whatever. But question. Okay, so this is an important question. All right, so there are answers to this that people will give, and they're technically correct. Like they'll say JavaScript or whatever, right? However, if you do not like JavaScript, you will not write a program in that. Focus on what you like. You'll like your career more over for this. Yes. But if you ask Co-op the same question, they're always going to say MERN stack application. So, I mean, you can go either way. If you want to make, and MERN stack means Mongo, Express, React. What's next? Really? Okay, Mongo, Express, React. Anyways, that's a JavaScript app, right? So JavaScript is typically pretty popular. They'll just say JavaScript, right? Node, yeah. So next, you want to try and get a research position of some small way, right? Your professors are actually always looking for programmers, and and even if they won't accept you, you can try and try again. It's not like they denied you once and that means forever, right? if what Eric did was he went to every professor and he asked if they had a position open for developing, all of them said no. However, he went back the next year in second year, did the same, and one professor, Kent, who is now retired, was like, "Oh, you came to me last year with this, didn't you?" And then he liked his enthusiasm and took him on board. And there's other ways to manifest this stuff, right? So here's some insider info. All your fourth years seniors have a project they have to do with professors. I'm sure if you asked one of them, don't ask me, to be added into the repo and see if you can help with what they're doing, they'd love it. Honestly, no one really wants to do these stupid projects. So if you want to do something like that, that's also a cool idea. Just try and get a position so you can label it experience and not just a project. So yeah, that's basically your mission. You have absolutely nothing to lose by asking. Don't care what they think, just ask. All right. Make a LinkedIn account and connect with people. So you can send me a request too. I always accept. This is my LinkedIn profile. You want to make one that pops out, and I won't go into the details of that, but this is fairly important. I think there's another presentation on this. So just make a LinkedIn profile and try and apply to a couple jobs if you want. First years can do this too. And start applying to internships. Do not self-reject. Self-rejecting is the biggest loss of like potential, right? If you see a job and there's a language you don't know or a year of experience you don't have, do not care, apply. It says requirements, but the actual requirements of the job is dictated by the people who apply to it. If they're getting no one with that experience, they'll go down. That position needs to be filled. All right? Do not self-reject yourself from a job just because you don't know JavaScript, you don't know PHP, you don't know something. You're a programmer, and what a programmer means is you're not tied to a language. You're able to learn. That's your whole deal as a programmer. Okay, so working in the United States. So if you're a citizen, you can basically deny this or I guess disregard this. But a lot of people end up working in the United States, and there's a lot of reasons why. So the first one is higher pay. Higher pay, more opportunities, and bigger, better, funner, more fun cities, whatever you want to say. There's a lot to do in the United States, and you get paid a lot for it. So to work as a student in the United States, you'll require a J1 visa. A J1 is required regardless of your citizenship, Canadian or international. The company has to sponsor you. So that's why it's harder to get an American internship as a Canadian. There are fewer companies that are willing to sponsor this visa. But if you can think of all the big tech companies that they're all willing to do that. So you can't get this visa on your own. The company takes care of all of this. You don't have to stress about this. Just stress about your actual interview. And most small companies in the United States do not sponsor visas. And since there's no one here looking for full time, I won't go on about TNs.
It's important to remember that some companies, American companies, do not have to get you a visa when the job is remote. So if the job is remote, you can work in Canada just fine, and they don't have to get a visa.
Okay, so this is a podcast that I used to run regularly. So it's called The Commit Message, and I've talked to many industry professionals, including one standing in front of you or sitting in front of you. So there's a couple episodes here, and they're a little bit old. But if you want to know how you can get to, for example, Google as a software engineer from University of Windsor, sounds like a hard thing to do, but this guy, he sat down with me, and he told me about his journey, about becoming a software engineer at Google. There's current students. Layla's a huge one. She got a Microsoft internship. Ryan standing in front of you or sitting in front of you. Senior engineer at Silicon Valley. And then Kyle himself sat down with me to talk about the co-op program. These are all huge. These are all amazing. And if you're newer to Canada, I'd especially recommend the first one. This is an amazing launch for, especially for people who are newer to Canada. Anyways, a lot of these episodes are really good, I'd say. Podcast is carried by the guest, not the host. Frequently asked questions. What languages or tools should I know to attract companies? Any language is fine. Companies don't usually require a certain language and assume you can learn on the job. So, funny story with this. I got an interview for a programming language named COBOL. I won't expect any of you to know about this. Just some old programming language. And I did say straight up, and this was a new grad position. I did say straight up, I don't have any COBOL experience. They said straight up to me, it's fine, we'll teach you as long as you know another language, okay? Well, typically people don't care that much, especially with internships, all right? How important are grades? Now, this is an interesting topic. I'm sure a lot of you were raised with the mindset of get high grades, not much else is important. This is not true. It's not as important as you think. Very few companies will ask for your transcript, and even if they do, I don't know how many read it. And even if they do, I don't know how much they care. So yes. And they might ask you for your GPA, but generally, like if you are like above a 60%, it's probably not that big of a deal. Like as long as you're not in jeopardy of losing your degree, you are fine. All right, questions. I've dumped a lot of info on you. It was Jeremy, it wasn't me. Question, statement.
What company fucking required COBOL?
FIS Global, FinTech.
Really?
Yeah.
My uncle has a career program from the 80s, and he said that he learned COBOL.
Well,
he said for his first few years he did punch cards.
I mean, yeah, but that's because it was the 80s.
Oh, question.
For the professor stuff, about like asking your professor for like the summer thing, like would it be better to ask them in person or to email them?
In person is typically the better. Like,
And then how about like because I'm a first year, so like I haven't had any professors. Like, is it okay if I
yeah, go ahead.
random professor? I mean,
Just say I'm a student in your class, and you can do this for professors even not in your class. The thing is, like, these guys are really just burning for work, and a lot of professors do not want to do the dirty work. So they'll give you a research, and I mean it gives you money too. So it's not even just about experience. Like you can help yourself out a lot.
Yeah, you could just be like, I saw you researching this, I'm interested in this, blah, blah, blah. You know, normally they're pretty.
Don't try and be like, hey, can I get a research position? Try and make it like, you know, like at least try to sound interested. Any other questions? The stuff I was saying was real, by the way. Many fourth years do not want to do their stupid end of year projects. So if you want to, if you want to get into a project, you can ask a fourth year. Any questions? Then, yeah. Thank you for joining us. If you have a private question, come up here.
Thank you, Zane. You're so beautiful.
Thanks, guys. And that's it. All right, come up with your thing.
If you want resume critiques at another time, Zane does them.